All right, hey guys. This is Unit 2, Video 12, and we are finally moving on to our second component of society, which is going to take place in this quadrant. It's called the collective consciousness. Before I go on, I just remembered that I want to make something clear. If we were to divide, so we have this drawing, we're going to have this drawing all the time. And it obviously is divided into four different components. We also want to think of two of them as going together. So I'm going to draw a red line right here. This side over here, taken together, the symbolic universe and the collective consciousness, which is our second component, are called culture. So what we have here, and we'll get to this in the next unit, but this entire side is called culture, the symbolic universe, all of the things that hold meaning, and the collective consciousness, which we're going to talk about today, together add up to culture. Okay, the framing question for today is, why can I read your mind? Which is a kind of ridiculous and stupid question, but it's significant because for most of you, I absolutely can read your mind. I can tell right now that one of the things that you believe is that all people should be treated equally. Probably true. I can tell that for most of you, you believe that human beings should be free to determine what they want to do in their lives. Like, this is not magic, obviously. But if we think about the fact that, go back to the way that we tend to think about ourselves, and I'll suggest I'm reading your mind here too. We tend to think of ourselves as unique individuals. You are different than me. And yet, like, I have those same thoughts in my mind, those same beliefs in my mind too. Probably every single person who's watching this video has those beliefs. And so it's kind of interesting that while we are unique individuals, there's a tremendous amount of overlap with what's going on in our minds. That's what we're going to be talking about today. We've got three big points for this video. First of all, the definition of the collective consciousness. Second of all, what it is comprised of. And third, where it comes from. We'll just get straight into them. The collective consciousness can be defined very simply as a society's shared beliefs. Beliefs is the key word there. Well, shared is actually pretty important too, because I just talked about the fact that you and I share the same beliefs. The idea here is that we've gotten those beliefs. You and I are here. We step into a machine and the machine gives us those beliefs. There's a creepy degree of what we could think of as brainwashing going on. Again, don't be too worried about it, because you can still live a happy life. You still have agency. You've always got choices that you can make once you realize what's going on. Let me think, where was I going with that? Sorry. So we've got a society's shared beliefs. Oh, I was just going to differentiate this very clearly from the symbolic universe. Symbolic universe is things that hold meaning. It is our ability to say, that means this, that means that. Beliefs are slightly different, and this is where we'll get into what it's made of. So the collective consciousness is shared beliefs. What are beliefs? What are these things that the collective consciousness is made of? Now, the way we're going to define beliefs in this course is that they are assertions about reality. A belief is not a thing that holds meaning. A belief, although it may be important to you, but a belief is an assertion about reality, an assertion about how the world is kind of supposed to be. Okay, really importantly about assertions about reality, they could be wrong. And the fact that I believe, well, let's say, one of the things I believe is that soccer is the coolest sport. You probably don't believe that. And is there an objective way that we can say that that is true? No, probably not. But it is an assertion about reality. We could go to things that are crazier. There are some segment of the population that believes that the earth is flat. That is an assertion about reality. I'm saying I think that this is the way this is. It's not. But the fact that somebody would believe that may have an important impact not just on their life, but on other people's lives. Another belief that there is no scientific evidence to back up is that white people are superior to people of color. That's an assertion about reality, and that one you can see very clearly. It has an impact on people's lives. So we're not going to define the beliefs in the collective consciousness based on whether they are true or not, because that doesn't matter. America was a white supremacist country for years and years and years. Our very first law, the Naturalization Act of 1793, I believe, said only white people can be citizens of this country. And that was based on a belief that white people were superior. Clearly, there's no scientific basis for that belief. But that doesn't matter. A belief doesn't have to be true to be held here. What does make the belief part of the collective consciousness or not? Because like my belief that soccer's the coolest sport, that's not a part of the collective consciousness. Remember, the collective consciousness is a society's shared beliefs. So this is going to be a little bit academically weaselly, but I'm going to weasel anyway. Imagine that you could look into, you were above, and you had like a cross section of every brain that you saw in America, 300 million brains, and let's just say that what you saw in there were the 100 or so beliefs that every person has. So you're looking down and you see all of these beliefs. And you look in my brain and you see soccer's the coolest sport. You look in the brain next to me, it's not there. You look in all 300 million, and let's say there are maybe 10 million of those. That isn't really something that we would say is society's. Society obviously hasn't put that belief in most of the people who step into it. So that belief that soccer is the coolest sport would not be a part of it. It's just a belief that some people have. In order for it to be part of the collective consciousness, we would have to see that belief in most of those brains that we're looking into. So for example, the belief right now, I would say with almost 100% certainty, the belief that individuals should be free to determine how their life goes. If you were to look into those 300 million brains, probably almost all 300 million of them would have that. That's a belief that would be in the collective consciousness. We've had an uprise in white supremacy lately in the last few years, but I would say that if you looked into the 300 million brains in America, you would still see most of them having a belief that all people should be treated equally. Contrast that with my belief that heavy metal music is the best kind of music. Most people don't believe that. So when we're thinking about the collective consciousness, it's comprised of beliefs, but they have to be the beliefs that most of the people who step into this machine have. And for all of us, like you and I both have the belief in equality. We both have the belief in freedom. I have beliefs in heavy metal music and in soccer about them being the most entertaining things that you can do in your spare time. You probably don't. So where most people overlap, those are the collective consciousness. Okay. That I was a little bit of a digression. It was stuff I had to cover, but we've kind of dealt with our first two things. The definition of the collective consciousness is that it is society's shared beliefs. So most of the people hold this belief. It's part of the collective consciousness. Second is what it's comprised of. Collective consciousness is comprised of beliefs. Beliefs are assertions about reality. Let me scroll my script down a little bit. They don't have to be true. Because, and this is significant, and reflect on this a little bit, what matters in people's lives more than what is true is what people believe in. And it's not just what you believe in matters for your life, it's what other people believe in that matters for your life. If I were to all of a sudden become homeless, if that were to happen to me, the belief in America that all individuals are wholly responsible for what happens to them in their lives, the belief that I should be able to just do it and succeed, whether that belief is right or wrong, it's going to affect how charitable people treat me, right? Or how charitably people treat me. So the belief that's in the collective consciousness that is in most of the brains that step in here, that belief is going to affect me whether I believe it or not. I could be a homeless guy, and if 90% of the people who walk by me think, well, you should have done better, that's going to affect the way my life turns out. Okay, so what matters is not whether it's true. What matters is what people believe. Okay, third point, last point for this video. Where do beliefs come from? Where do beliefs in general come from? Like, how did those beliefs about heavy metal music, about soccer, about freedom, how did they get in here? And specifically, we're going to deal with the ones that are parts of the collective consciousness. Where do they come from? There's a really simple answer for this, and if you strip away all of the sort of water that is around us that Marshall McLuhan talks about, and just look down on humans as an animal that is running around in an ecosystem, where could it come from? I mean, it's not going to come from things in nature. It's not going to come from which is what we've got, right? We've got things in nature. What we can see is things in nature, material culture, and human beings. It's not going to come from material culture either. The only place that beliefs can come from are from other people. The reason that I believe about these things about soccer and heavy metal and freedom and equality is because other people at some point told me these things. They communicated these things to me. It may have been direct communication, my mother or father telling me, you know what, you need to treat people equally. It doesn't matter if people look differently, you treat them the same. I wasn't born with that information. That had to be put there by somebody else. Or whether it was me listening to music. When I was growing up, MTV played music videos, and so I learned a lot about music. Now, we don't think of the mass media as being people interacting with us, but what else could it possibly be? They're interacting with us in a more complicated way, using more material culture to get it there. But the difference between my mom or dad talking to me, my mom or dad writing me a book and me reading it, my mom or dad recording a video and me listening to it, my mom or dad making a movie and them being in one place and that movie having to be electronically communicated to where I am. In all of those instances, it's my mom or dad talking to me, right? It's just there are different media of communication. Same thing's true right now, and this is a creepy thing to think about because a lot of the beliefs we get are from the mass media. We turn on the TV or we open up a website or whatever we do, and there are people who are talking to us. We're not aware of the fact that that's happening. We're not super conscious of it, but absolutely that's what's happening. And as we talked about when I was dealing with the how you came to have the ideas you have about yourself, a lot of these people are idiots or they don't know what they're doing. That doesn't mean that you should disregard everything that you see, but you should also go into things and think, okay, so these people may be right, but maybe not. I mean, don't take it too far. You don't want to disbelieve everything because it's hard to prove anything for real. Without doing it yourself. You have to take some people's word for things, but you also need to be aware that factoring out journalism, the stories that we get told in movies or in TV shows, they're stories and they're cool, and I'm not saying you shouldn't take part in them, but they also tend to communicate ideas, beliefs about what men should be like, what women should be like, that aren't necessarily going to be helpful. All right, I went off on mass media, but that's okay. Mass media needs to be gone off on every once in a while. All right. That is it for this video. We've gotten an introduction to the collective consciousness. It is society's shared beliefs. Beliefs are assertions about reality. How do they end up in this brain? They end up there because other people have stepped into this machine and then talk to us, whether it's directly or indirectly. We get those beliefs from other people. If this starts to feel kind of creepy and cultish, yeah, it is. Don't freak out about it. Like, you want to be aware of that because then you can make better choices about how you're going to live your life. Remember, back to day one, I said this is the most important class that you will take. And the reason for that is because it allows us to reflect on these things. I'll be back in the next video. We'll go into a little bit more detail about the collective consciousness.